On to day 5 on our top list of aspects you do not already know about addictions or things that you may not be aware of. Day 5 brings us to many addicts have clear rules that they follow. Have you ever known an addict that only drinks beer even when there's hard alcohol in the house? Or a cocaine addict that can go all week without using? There are patterns for these individuals that support their addiction, but it is also a pattern that they struggle to work through. They choose the substance because they like the way it feels or only need it when in certain situations. That does not make it less problematic. It just helps us understand the complexity of addiction. So it's funny, we think that if we kind of keep things contained and maybe don't step outside of what we make these rules, that if it looks like this for me, it's not a problem. And for a lot of people, it's not until they take a step back and look at the behavior, or the behavior sort of gets out of control, that they realize that they'd never actually contained their addiction at all. Mm-hmm. And if you could just speak to what that looks like when you recognize that, and why do we make these rules that make it safe and not a threatening behavior?
Well, because we're trying to understand ourselves why we're engaging in these behaviors, and sometimes also justifying it. So if it becomes the thing where you're like, well, I only have a couple of glasses of wine at the end of the day, it feels like it's justifiable until you realize that, but I wake up every single morning feeling hazy. That's when it starts to be a question, right? So it's not necessarily about it's not about it just is this, or I only do it at this time. It's the fact that every single time it becomes repetitive and there's that pairing, like I need this at the end of the day, again, that word need, or I need it in social situations, or I need this to be able to unwind. That just reinforces that belief that if this happens, then this also has to happen, where it should not. If we want to make sure that it's not an addictive behavior, we want to make sure that that pairing does not exist. I can be in a social situation and I can choose not to drink, or I can unwind at the end of the day without going online.
Right, and I think it's interesting that I see it a lot downtown Calgary, out anywhere, basically nationally as well. If this behavior only exists Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's not an addiction. You know, we have in our mind that things have to be habitual and daily before they become an addiction, and that's not necessarily true.
No, because a habit is just repetitive in nature, so any time that there becomes a clear pattern of behavior, then it's still repetition. It doesn't necessarily have to be daily to be a repetition, but if I do this every Friday and Saturday, it is still a habit.